The day before my engagement party, my stepmother ruined what she thought was my dress, saying she wanted to see how beautiful it would look now. But she made a mistake and destroyed her own $7,000 dress instead. The next day, she begged me to lend her mine, but I refused, and now she's devastated. Soup Reddit, my name is Elena, and this story is about the most spectacular act of karma I've ever witnessed firsthand. It involves my stepmother Victoria, my wedding day, and what happens when someone's jealousy and vindictiveness backfire in the most perfect way possible. To give you some background, my father married Victoria when I was 18 years old. She's one of those women who absolutely has to be the center of attention at every single event, no matter whose special moment it's supposed to be. From the very beginning, Victoria never liked me because I serve as a constant reminder that my dad had a whole life before her. My mother passed away when I was 14, and Victoria has always deeply resented that I kept photos of my mom displayed around the house. She's also harbored resentment over the fact that my dad still speaks fondly of my mother's memory. Over the years, Victoria has made my life difficult in small, calculated ways. She would conveniently forget to save me dinner when I was coming home late from work or school. She'd schedule important family events on days when she knew I had significant plans or commitments. It was always petty bullshit like that, but she was always careful to execute these slights in ways that seemed accidental or that she could easily blame on miscommunication. My dad, bless his heart, loves her deeply and tends to give her the benefit of the doubt in these situations. Fast forward to 4 months ago when I got engaged to my boyfriend Adrian. We've been together for 3 wonderful years, and he's absolutely everything I could have asked for in a partner. When we announced our engagement to the family, Victoria's first comment wasn't congratulations or expressions of happiness for us. Instead, she immediately asked if she could wear white to the wedding, claiming that ivory would wash her out completely. I shut that idea down immediately, but it definitely set the tone for what would become the entire wedding planning process. Victoria inserted herself into absolutely everything related to our wedding planning. She had strong opinions about our venue choice, declaring it too small for a proper celebration. She criticized our flower selections as too simple and unsophisticated. She even took issue with our menu, calling it too ethnic. Apparently, serving Italian food at an Italian wedding was somehow limiting our options and not inclusive enough for all our guests. She kept pushing relentlessly for changes that would make the wedding more about what she wanted and less about what Adrian and I actually liked and envisioned for our special day. The worst part of the entire planning process was how Victoria kept trying to upstage me at every turn. When I finally found my dress, a beautiful, simple A-line gown that made me feel like an absolute princess, Victoria went out and bought something that cost twice as much as mine. She spent $6,500 on a designer number that was honestly gorgeous, but completely inappropriate for a wedding where she wasn't the bride. It was this stunning emerald green silk creation with intricate beading and an actual train. When she showed it to me, she made absolutely sure to mention the price tag 3 times during our conversation. She also made a point of telling me how the boutique staff had said it was definitely more sophisticated than what younger brides usually choose for their weddings. I bit my tongue because I didn't want to cause any drama before my wedding day, but inside, I was absolutely fuming. This woman was clearly planning to show up to my wedding looking like she was headed to the Met Gala, obviously trying to outshine me on my own day. The real problem started during our rehearsal dinner. Victoria had been drinking throughout the evening, not heavily, but enough to make her feel bold and lose whatever filter she normally maintained. She kept making little passive-aggressive comments about how some people don't know how to plan elegant events properly. She also made several remarks about how she hoped the wedding photos would turn out well, despite the amateur choices we had made for various aspects of the celebration. Then she started targeting my dress directly, right in front of everyone at the table. She said, "I just hope Elena's dress photographs well tomorrow." She continued, "Some fabrics can look so cheap in pictures, especially under those harsh church lights they have." My future mother-in-law, Natasha, looked absolutely ready to throw her wine glass directly at Victoria's face, but I squeezed her hand under the table because I didn't want to make a scene at what was supposed to be a happy family gathering. After dinner, most of the guests went home to rest up for the big day, but the wedding party and immediate family came back to my dad's house for a nightcap and some final preparations. My wedding dress was hanging in my old bedroom upstairs because I was planning to stay there the night before the wedding for sentimental reasons. It seemed much easier than trying to transport the dress carefully in the morning when everything would be rushed and chaotic. Victoria had brought her dress over to the house as well, since she was planning to get ready there with me and my bridesmaids the next morning. The garment bags were hanging side by side in my closet, mine in a beautiful white bag with bride embroidered elegantly on it, and hers in a plain black bag from the boutique where she had purchased it. Around midnight, everyone started heading to bed to get some rest before the big day. I was absolutely exhausted and more than ready for the night to be over. I hugged everyone goodbye, confirmed the timeline for the morning preparations, and headed upstairs to get some much-needed sleep before what would hopefully be the most important day of my life. I should mention that I'm a very light sleeper by nature, and my dad's old house creaks like crazy whenever anyone moves around. So when I heard footsteps in the hallway around 2 a.m., I woke up immediately. At first I thought maybe someone was just using the bathroom, but then I heard my bedroom door open very quietly and carefully. I lay there completely frozen, trying to figure out what was happening. Through my barely cracked eyelids, I could see a figure moving around my room in the darkness. It was Victoria. I could tell by her distinctive silhouette and the way she moved. She was being incredibly quiet and deliberate, tiptoeing around like she was desperately trying not to wake me up. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it, but I forced myself to stay completely still and breathe like I was still asleep. I watched in shock as she went directly to my closet and very carefully unzipped what she thought was my garment bag. What happened next still gives me chills when I think about it. She pulled out a small bottle from somewhere. I couldn't see exactly what it was in the darkness, but she opened it and started pouring liquid all over the dress inside the bag. The smell hit me immediately and unmistakably. It was bleach. I wanted to scream, to jump up and stop her, but I was so completely shocked by what I was witnessing that I couldn't move. I just lay there watching this woman try to destroy my wedding dress with bleach, less than 12 hours before my wedding ceremony. She was muttering under her breath while she poured, and I caught fragments of what she was saying. Perfect little princess. See how perfect, and not so special after. After she finished pouring the bleach, she carefully zipped the bag back up and crept out of my room. I heard her footsteps going back downstairs to wherever she was sleeping. I lay there shaking, trying to process what had just happened to me. Part of me wondered if I was having some kind of nightmare, but the acrid smell of bleach was definitely real and filling my room. I waited about 10 minutes to make absolutely sure she was really gone and wasn't coming back. Then I got up and turned on the light. When I opened my closet, that's when I realized what had actually happened. The bags had been switched at some point. I don't know if Victoria had moved them earlier when she hung up her dress, or if they had gotten switched when the cleaning lady had tidied up the room, but the white bag with bride embroidered on it was now hanging on the left side of the closet, where Victoria's bag had been hanging earlier in the evening. In the darkness, she had grabbed the bag that was in the position where mine should have been, which was actually her own dress. I unzipped the black garment bag with shaking hands, and there it was, my beautiful, perfect, completely untouched wedding dress. Then I opened the other bag. Victoria's $6,500 designer dress was completely ruined. The bleach had eaten through the silk in several places, leaving gaping holes throughout the fabric. The areas that weren't completely destroyed were stained beyond any hope of repair. The beading was falling off where the bleach had weakened the threads holding it in place. It looked like someone had taken a blowtorch to the entire garment. I stood there staring at the destroyed dress, and I'll be completely honest, I started laughing. I had to keep it quiet because I didn't want to wake anyone up, but I couldn't help myself. The cosmic justice of it all was just too perfect to believe. I took pictures of everything with my phone to document what had happened, then carefully put both dresses back exactly where they were and went to bed. I didn't sleep much for the rest of the night, but it wasn't from anxiety about my wedding anymore. I was actually excited to see how this whole situation would play out in the morning. The next morning, my bridesmaids Cassandra, Isabella, and Gabriella arrived at 8 a.m. sharp to start getting ready for the wedding. We were all having coffee and getting our hair done by the stylist when we suddenly heard a blood-curdling shriek from upstairs. Elena, get up here right now!" Victoria's voice echoed through the house. We all looked at each other with raised eyebrows. My maid of honor. Cassandra gave me a questioning look and said, "That doesn't sound like happy wedding day energy to me." I played completely dumb, putting on my most innocent expression. "I wonder what's wrong with her," I said with feigned concern. "Maybe you guys should start on makeup while I go check on what's happening upstairs." I went upstairs to find Victoria standing in my room, holding the destroyed remains of her dress with tears streaming down her face. When she saw me, she immediately started yelling hysterically. "Look what happened!" she screamed, waving the ruined dress around. Someone broke into the house and destroyed my dress. This is a complete disaster. What am I going to wear to your wedding? We need to call the police immediately." I looked at the dress and gasped dramatically, putting on my best shocked expression. "Oh my gosh, Victoria, that's absolutely terrible! What happened to it?" "I don't know," she wailed. "I came up to get ready and found it like this. There are holes everywhere. Someone must have poured acid or something on it." She was completely spiraling at this point, pacing around the room and gesturing wildly with the ruined dress. "This cost $6,500. $6,500. And now it's completely destroyed. The wedding is in 4 hours. What am I supposed to do?" I put on my most sympathetic face and said, "I'm so sorry this happened to you. That's just awful." Then she stopped pacing and looked at me with this calculating expression that I knew all too well from years of living with her manipulative behavior. "We're the same size," she said suddenly. "What?" I replied, though I had a sinking feeling about where this was going. "We're the same size," she repeated, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head as she formulated her plan. "Your dress, I could wear your dress." I blinked at her in disbelief. "My wedding dress? Just for the ceremony," she said quickly. "You could change into something else afterward. Or we could find you something simple at the mall. The stores might open early if we call and explain it's an emergency situation." The sheer audacity was absolutely breathtaking. I stared at her for a moment before responding. "Victoria, it's my wedding dress. For my wedding. That's happening in 4 hours. But I don't have anything else appropriate to wear," she protested. "All the stores are closed, and this is a family emergency. Please, Elena, we're family." This was the moment I had been waiting for all morning. I looked her straight in the eye and smiled. "No." The word hung in the air between us like a bomb that had just exploded. Victoria's face went through about 5 different expressions in the span of 2 seconds. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, no, you can't wear my wedding dress to my wedding," I said calmly. "But you don't understand. I have nothing to wear. I can't show up naked." "I'm sure you'll figure something out," I replied. "Maybe you have something in your regular wardrobe that would work for a wedding." "Nothing appropriate for a wedding," she shrieked. "Everything I own is either too casual or too formal. This dress was perfect." She was getting more agitated by the second, her voice rising to a near shriek. I could hear my bridesmaids downstairs pretending not to listen to every single word of this conversation. "I'm really sorry about your dress, Victoria, but I'm not lending you mine." "Fine, fine! Then I'm not coming to your wedding!" "That's your choice," I said simply. She stared at me like I had just slapped her across the face. I think she expected me to cave and beg her to reconsider. When I didn't, she completely lost what was left of her composure. "You selfish little brat! This is all your fault somehow. You probably did this yourself for attention." "I destroyed your dress?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "You? I don't know how, but this has to be connected to you somehow. Things like this don't just happen." I maintained my calm smile throughout her tirade. "Victoria, I was asleep. My bridesmaids can tell you what time they arrived this morning. I've been downstairs with them the whole time until you called me up here." She was grasping at straws now, and she knew it. "Well, maybe one of your friends did it. They never liked me anyway." "Why would my friend sneak into the house in the middle of the night to pour bleach on a dress?" I asked reasonably. "I don't know, but someone did this." "You're right," I said, still smiling. "Someone did do this." Something in my tone must have gotten through to her, because she stopped ranting and really looked at me for the first time. I saw the exact moment when she started to wonder if I knew something I wasn't telling her. What do you mean?" she asked slowly. "I mean, someone definitely poured bleach on that dress. The question is who?" We stared at each other for a long moment. I could see her trying to figure out if I was implying what she thought I was implying, and whether I could possibly know what she had done. Finally, she played her last card. "I'm telling your father about this. About how cruel you're being on your wedding day. How you're refusing to help family in a crisis." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "I'm sure Dad would love to hear all about what happened to your dress." Victoria stomped downstairs in a fury, and I heard her on the phone with my dad, who was getting ready at Adrian's parents' house with the rest of the men. I couldn't hear his side of the conversation, but I could definitely hear her getting more and more worked up as the call progressed. "She won't let me borrow her dress. I know it sounds crazy, but mine is completely ruined," she was saying loudly. "Yes, ruined. Someone poured bleach all over it. I don't know who would do such a thing." There was a pause while my dad responded. "She's being completely unreasonable. Yes, I know it's her wedding day, but this is an emergency situation." Another long pause, and then her tone changed dramatically. What do you mean? What was I doing with bleach? I wasn't doing anything with bleach. Why would you even ask me that? I could hear the defensiveness creeping into her voice. Fine, fine! I'll figure it out myself! She snapped before hanging up the phone. She stomped around downstairs for a while, and my bridesmaids were very quiet, clearly trying to process what they had just witnessed. About 20 minutes later, she came back upstairs, but her whole demeanor had completely changed. The hysterical anger was gone, replaced by this cold, calculated calmness that was somehow even more unsettling than her screaming had been. I know what you're doing, she said quietly when she appeared in my doorway. What am I doing? I asked innocently. You know something about my dress. You know what really happened to it. I tilted my head with the most innocent expression I could muster. What really happened? Stop playing games, Elena. If you know something, just say it. I know that your dress is ruined and you want to wear mine, and I said no. That's all I know, I replied calmly. She studied my face for a long moment, searching for any sign that I was lying or hiding something. Then she turned and left without another word. The next few hours were actually pretty peaceful. My bridesmaids and I finished getting ready, and honestly, it was the most relaxed I had felt during the entire wedding planning process. There was something incredibly liberating about knowing that Victoria's plan to upstage me had backfired so spectacularly. Around noon, my dad arrived to pick me up for the church. He took one look at me in my dress and started tearing up immediately. You look just like your mother, he said, which is honestly the highest compliment he could ever give me. Dad, about Victoria's dress, I started to say. He held up a hand to stop me. I don't want to know. Whatever happened, happened. She'll figure it out. Is she still coming to the wedding? She says she is. She found something to wear, apparently. I was curious about what she had managed to come up with on such short notice, but honestly, I was too happy to care much about it. My wedding day was turning out to be perfect. My dress was absolutely perfect, and Victoria's sabotage had blown up in her face completely. What more could I possibly ask for? The ceremony was absolutely beautiful. Adrian cried when he saw me walking down the aisle, which made me start crying too. The church was full of people who genuinely loved us and were there to celebrate our happiness. Everything went exactly as we had planned and dreamed it would. Victoria did show up, wearing a simple black cocktail dress that was entirely appropriate and looked like it came from her regular wardrobe. She sat in the back with my dad, didn't cause any scenes during the ceremony, and looked absolutely miserable the entire time. You could practically see the storm cloud hanging over her head. At the reception, she avoided me completely. She sat at her assigned table, picked at her food without really eating anything, and left early without saying goodbye to anyone. My dad apologized for her abrupt departure, saying she had developed a headache and needed to go home. It wasn't until the next day, when Adrian and I got back from our honeymoon suite at the hotel, that I learned the full extent of Victoria's complete crash and burn. Apparently, after she left the reception, she went home and had an absolute meltdown. She called several family members to complain about how I had supposedly ruined her wedding experience and how the whole day had been a disaster from her perspective. She told people that I had been cruel and vindictive, refusing to help her in what she claimed was a crisis situation. But here's where it gets really good. She also called her sister Beatrice, who she's always tried desperately to impress with her sophisticated lifestyle. Victoria told Beatrice the whole story about her dress being mysteriously destroyed, looking for sympathy and support. But Beatrice, who is apparently much smarter than Victoria gives her credit for, asked some very pointed and uncomfortable questions. She wanted to know why Victoria was hanging her dress in my room instead of the guest room where she was supposed to be staying. She asked why Victoria happened to have bleach with her at my dad's house. She questioned why a vandal would target Victoria's dress instead of mine, since I was actually the bride. By the end of that conversation, Beatrice had basically figured out what really happened. And instead of keeping it to herself to protect her sister, she shared her theory with several other family members. Within a single day, the story had made its way through Victoria's entire social circle. Everyone was talking about how Victoria had tried to sabotage my wedding dress and ended up destroying her own expensive gown instead through her own incompetence. The best part was that several people who knew Victoria well said the story made perfect sense to them. Apparently, she had a long history of petty, vindictive behavior that most of the family just ignored because it was easier than confronting her about it directly. When my dad found out what people were saying about Victoria, he was absolutely devastated. He confronted her directly, and she finally admitted what she had actually done. According to him, she broke down crying and claimed she had been drinking and wasn't thinking clearly that night. She said she was just so jealous of how perfect everything was turning out for me, and she wanted to level the playing field somehow. My dad was furious with her, not just about what she had tried to do to me, but about how she had put him in the position of unknowingly defending her actions after she had tried to sabotage his daughter's wedding. The betrayal cut deep for him, and he felt like a fool for having trusted her completely. They're now in intensive marriage counseling, and Victoria has been told in no uncertain terms that she needs to apologize to me properly and make genuine amends for what she did. She sent me a text message last week asking if we could meet for coffee to clear the air between us. I haven't responded to her yet. Part of me is genuinely curious to hear what she has to say and how she plans to justify her actions. But another part of me thinks she's already faced enough natural consequences for her behavior without me needing to engage with her any further. I have to admit, though, that every time I think about her standing in my room at 2 a.m., carefully pouring bleach all over what she thought was my wedding dress, only to discover the next morning that she had destroyed her own $6,500 designer gown instead, well, let's just say I'm a firm believer in cosmic justice now. The funny thing is, if she had just been genuinely happy for me and worn something appropriate to my wedding like a normal person, none of this would have happened at all. She created her own disaster by trying to create one for me. The irony is absolutely beautiful. My dress, by the way, is safely preserved and hanging in my closet at home. Every time I see it, I'm reminded of the most perfect example of instant karma I've ever witnessed firsthand. And yes, Adrian and I are extremely happy together. Our marriage is off to a fantastic start, and we're already planning our first anniversary celebration. Victoria won't be invited to that either. Update added later. Oh my gosh, this story got huge! Thank you so much for all the support and comments. I never expected this kind of response. A few people asked for clarification on some details, so let me address those questions. Yes, I'm absolutely certain it was Victoria in my room that night. I saw her face clearly when she turned toward the light coming from the hallway, and I recognized her voice when she was muttering to herself. No, I didn't confront her immediately about what I witnessed. I was honestly in complete shock, and I wanted to see how the whole situation would play out naturally. Also, I knew that catching her in the act wouldn't necessarily prove anything conclusively, since she could claim she was sleepwalking or make up some other excuse. Yes, my dad is somewhat disappointed in me for not telling him immediately what had happened. But he understands why I handled it the way I did, and he's much more upset with Victoria for putting me in that position in the first place. Several people asked if I feel bad about not lending her my dress when she asked. The answer is absolutely not. Even if she hadn't tried to destroy it first, expecting to wear the bride's dress to the bride's wedding is completely insane. The audacity was truly breathtaking. Someone asked what happened to Victoria's ruined dress. As far as I know, she threw it away. That's $6,500 down the drain because she couldn't stand the thought of me having a perfect wedding day. Thanks again for reading and for all the incredible support. It feels really good to finally tell this story to people who understand how crazy the whole situation was. Final update. Victoria and I did meet for coffee last week, and I have to tell you how that conversation went down. She apologized and admitted what she had done, claiming she was in a very dark place mentally and was consumed by jealousy of my happiness. She offered to pay for my dress to be professionally cleaned, even though it didn't need it since it was never actually damaged. She also asked if we could start over with a clean slate and rebuild our relationship. I told her that I appreciated the apology, but that trust, once broken, is very hard to rebuild. I said I was willing to be civil at family events and gatherings, but that I wasn't interested in having a close relationship with someone who would try to sabotage my wedding. She didn't take that response well at all. She accused me of being unforgiving and holding grudges unnecessarily. I reminded her that she had literally tried to destroy my wedding dress with bleach just 12 hours before my wedding ceremony, and that the only reason her plan didn't work was because she grabbed the wrong garment bag in the darkness. She left the coffee shop crying, and I haven't heard from her since that conversation. My dad says she's been telling people that I refuse to accept her sincere apology and that I'm keeping the family divided unnecessarily. But you know what? I'm completely okay with that characterization. Some actions have permanent consequences, and trying to ruin someone's wedding day is definitely one of them. I'm happy, my marriage is strong, and I don't need her drama in my life. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well. Edit added later. You guys, I cannot believe what happened next. I thought this story was completely over, but Victoria apparently wasn't done making a fool of herself. So remember how I mentioned that Victoria has been telling people I refused to accept her sincere apology? Well, it turns out she's been doing a lot more than just complaining to family members about the situation. Yesterday, my cousin Lorenzo called me laughing so hard he could barely speak coherently. Apparently, Victoria has been posting extensively on Facebook about the whole situation. Not the truth, obviously, but her own completely twisted version where she's somehow the victim of everything that happened. According to her Facebook posts, here's what really happened in Victoria's alternate reality. She was the victim of a vicious prank where someone, heavily implying it was me or my friends, broke into the house and destroyed her dress as a cruel joke. She then humbly asked if she could borrow something to wear to the wedding, and I cruelly refused because I wanted to humiliate her at my own wedding. She painted herself as this long-suffering stepmother who has always tried to welcome me with open arms, but has been met with coldness and hostility from day one. She claimed that my jealousy of her relationship with my father has made me vindictive and spiteful over the years. The best part? She posted photos of the destroyed dress with a caption about how some people will go to any lengths to hurt innocent family members and asking for prayers during this difficult time in her life. I was initially furious when Lorenzo told me about the posts, but then he sent me screenshots of the comments section, and I started laughing instead. Apparently, Victoria forgot that social media has a very long memory, and several people remembered her previous posts about the dress. You know, the ones where she bragged extensively about how expensive it was and how it was definitely more sophisticated than what younger brides usually choose for their weddings. But more importantly, people remembered her posts from the weeks leading up to my wedding. Posts where she complained about our ethnic menu choices, criticized our amateur decorating decisions, and made passive-aggressive comments about young people not understanding true elegance. So when she tried to play the innocent victim, people weren't buying it at all. The comments were absolutely brutal. Victoria's own friends were calling her out, with several people pointing out that her story didn't make any logical sense. Why would someone break into the house just to destroy her dress and leave everything else completely untouched? Why would they use bleach instead of just cutting or staining the fabric? And why would they target the stepmother instead of the actual bride? But the real nail in the coffin came from a completely unexpected source. Gabriella, one of my bridesmaids, happens to be friends with Victoria's hairdresser. Apparently, Victoria had gone to get her hair done the day after my wedding, and she was so upset about the whole situation that she ended up telling her hairdresser the complete truth. The whole truth, including the part about sneaking into my room with bleach and accidentally destroying her own dress. The hairdresser, who is apparently quite a bit of a gossip, had already told several of her clients about Victoria's crazy wedding story before Victoria started posting her fake version on Facebook. So when people saw Victoria's posts, multiple people already knew what had really happened. Within hours, the comments on Victoria's posts went from sympathetic to accusatory. People started asking pointed questions about her timeline, her motivations, and why her story kept changing in different tellings. The final straw came when Beatrice, Victoria's own sister, commented on one of the posts. She simply wrote, "Victoria, we've talked about this. Just stop. You're making it worse for yourself." Victoria, instead of taking the hint and backing down, doubled down completely. She started arguing with people in the comments section, getting more and more defensive with each response. She eventually accused Beatrice of betraying family and taking sides with outsiders against her own blood. That's when Beatrice apparently decided she'd had enough of her sister's lies and manipulation. She made her own Facebook post, tagging Victoria directly, and laid out the entire truth for everyone to see. Beatrice's post was respectful, but firm. She explained how Victoria had called her after the wedding, told her what had really happened, and how she had figured out that Victoria had sabotaged herself through her own vindictive actions. Beatrice said she loved her sister but couldn't stand by and watch her destroy her relationships with lies and manipulation. She explained that Victoria needed to take responsibility for her actions and stop trying to make herself the victim of a situation she had created entirely through her own behavior. The post got shared dozens of times within Victoria's social circle. By this morning, everyone who knows Victoria has seen both versions of the story, and it's pretty clear which version people believe is the truth. But here's where it gets really good. And I mean, really good. Victoria's boss apparently saw the whole Facebook drama unfold. Victoria works as an event coordinator for a high-end catering company. Her job literally involves helping people plan perfect weddings and special occasions. When her boss saw posts about Victoria trying to sabotage someone's wedding, followed by Victoria lying about it extensively on social media and attacking family members who tried to set the record straight, she was not impressed at all. Victoria got called into a meeting this morning and was told that her behavior reflected poorly on the company's values and reputation. She wasn't fired, but she was put on probation and told that any further personal drama that affected the company's image would result in immediate termination. My dad called me this afternoon to give me the update on everything that's been happening. He sounded absolutely exhausted by the whole situation. Apparently, Victoria came home from work in complete hysterics, screaming about how everyone was ganging up on her and how this was all somehow my fault for turning people against her. My dad told her that she had turned people against herself by lying and trying to cover up what she had done instead of taking responsibility. He said he was embarrassed by her behavior and that if she didn't start taking responsibility and getting professional help, he was going to seriously consider a separation. That seemed to finally get through to her. According to my dad, she's agreed to start individual therapy and has promised to stop posting on social media about the whole situation entirely. She also apparently wants to write me a proper apology letter and is asking if I'd be willing to read it when she's finished. Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Part of me thinks she's only sorry because she got caught and faced real consequences, not because she actually understands how wrong her actions were. But another part of me thinks that maybe if she's really willing to do the hard work in therapy, there might be hope for some kind of civil relationship in the future. Either way, I'm not in any hurry to make that decision. She created this entire mess, and she can take all the time she needs to clean it up properly. The funniest part of all this is that several people have reached out to me after seeing the Facebook drama, including some of Victoria's former friends who apparently have their own stories about her behavior over the years. It turns out that trying to sabotage my wedding dress wasn't exactly out of character for her. One woman told me that Victoria had accidentally spilled red wine on her white dress at a Christmas party because she thought the woman was getting too much attention from the men there. Another said Victoria had spread rumors about her marriage being in trouble because she was jealous of the woman's new house. It's like the wedding incident gave people permission to finally talk about Victoria's pattern of behavior, and now it's all coming out into the open. I almost feel bad for her. Almost. But then I remember her standing in my room at 2 a.m. with a bottle of bleach, muttering about ruining my perfect day, and the sympathy disappears pretty quickly. Another update, 1 week later, Victoria sent the apology letter, and I have to say, it was quite interesting to read. It started off well enough, with her acknowledging what she had done and saying she understood how wrong it was. But then it devolved into lengthy explanations about her difficult childhood and how she's always struggled with feelings of inadequacy throughout her life. She went on about how seeing me have everything come so easily triggered her deepest insecurities. She also spent an entire paragraph explaining how the bleach incident was impulsive and completely out of character for her, which directly contradicts all the stories that have come out about her past behavior from other people who know her. The letter ended with her asking for my forgiveness and understanding and hoping we could rebuild our relationship stronger than it was before. I showed it to Adrian, and his reaction was absolutely perfect. She's apologizing for getting caught, not for what she did. He's completely right. The letter was more about making herself feel better than actually making amends to me for what she had done. I wrote back a short response thanking her for the letter, but explaining that forgiveness is a process, not a destination, and that rebuilding trust would require consistent, changed behavior over time, not just words on paper. I also told her that while I wished her well in therapy, I wasn't interested in having regular contact while she worked through her issues. I said I hoped she could respect that boundary. She responded with a much shorter letter, accusing me of being cold and unforgiving, and saying that she had tried her best to make things right with me. So yeah, she's clearly not there yet in terms of actually understanding what she did wrong. But you know what? I'm completely okay with that. I have a wonderful husband, a great life, and I don't need her drama complicating things. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just let toxic people face the natural consequences of their actions without trying to rescue them from it. My wedding was absolutely perfect, my dress was beautiful, and Victoria's plan backfired so spectacularly that it's become legendary in our family. That's really all the justice I need. Thanks for following this wild ride with me. It's been incredibly therapeutic to share the whole story and get perspectives from people who understand how crazy the entire situation was. Here's to justice and the importance of checking your garment bags before pouring bleach on them. Edit added later. You guys, I cannot believe what happened next. I thought this story was finally over, but Victoria apparently wasn't done making a fool of herself. So remember how I mentioned that Victoria has been telling people I refused to accept her sincere apology? Well, it turns out she's been doing a lot more than just complaining to family members about the situation. Yesterday, my cousin Lorenzo called me laughing so hard he could barely speak coherently. Apparently, Victoria has been posting extensively on Facebook about the whole situation again. Not the truth, obviously, but her own completely twisted version where she's somehow the victim of everything that happened. According to her latest posts, here's what really happened in Victoria's alternate reality. She was the victim of a vicious prank where someone, heavily implying it was me or my friends, broke into the house and destroyed her dress as a cruel joke. She then humbly asked if she could borrow something to wear to the wedding, and I cruelly refused because I wanted to humiliate her at my own wedding. She painted herself as this long-suffering stepmother who has always tried to welcome me with open arms, but has been met with coldness and hostility from day one. She claimed that my jealousy of her relationship with my father has made me vindictive and spiteful over the years. The best part? She posted photos of the destroyed dress with a caption about how some people will go to any lengths to hurt innocent family members and asking for prayers during this difficult time in her life. I was initially furious when Lorenzo told me about the posts, but then he sent me screenshots of the comments section, and I started laughing instead. Apparently, Victoria forgot that social media has a very long memory, and several people remembered her previous posts about the dress. You know, the ones where she bragged extensively about how expensive it was, and how it was definitely more sophisticated than what younger brides usually choose for their weddings. But more importantly, people remembered her posts from the weeks leading up to my wedding. Posts where she complained about our ethnic menu choices, criticized our amateur decorating decisions, and made passive-aggressive comments about young people not understanding true elegance. So when she tried to play the innocent victim again, people weren't buying it at all. The comments were absolutely brutal. Victoria's own friends were calling her out, with several people pointing out that her story didn't make any logical sense. The final straw came when Beatrice, Victoria's own sister, commented on one of the posts again. She simply wrote, "Victoria, we've talked about this multiple times. Just stop. You're making it worse for yourself." But the real nail in the coffin came from an unexpected source again. Gabriella, one of my bridesmaids, who happens to be friends with Victoria's hairdresser, had already told several people about Victoria's confession to the hairdresser. Within hours, the comments on Victoria's posts went from sympathetic to accusatory. People started asking pointed questions about her timeline, her motivations, and why her story kept changing in different tellings. The final straw came when Beatrice, Victoria's own sister, made another public post. This time, she was much less diplomatic than before. She tagged Victoria directly and laid out the entire truth again. But this time, she included specific details about their phone conversation after my wedding. Beatrice explained how Victoria had called her after the wedding, told her what had really happened, and how she had figured out that Victoria had sabotaged herself through her own vindictive actions. She said she loved her sister, but couldn't stand by and watch her destroy her relationships with lies and manipulation for a second time. Beatrice's post was shared dozens of times within Victoria's social circle again. By this morning, everyone who knows Victoria has seen both versions of the story multiple times now, and it's crystal clear which version people believe is the truth. But here's where it gets really, really good. Victoria's boss apparently saw the whole Facebook drama unfold again. Remember, Victoria works as an event coordinator for a high-end catering company. Her job literally involves helping people plan perfect weddings and special occasions. When her boss saw posts about Victoria trying to sabotage someone's wedding again, followed by Victoria lying about it extensively on social media for a second time and attacking family members who tried to set the record straight, she was absolutely done with the situation. Victoria got called into another meeting this morning and was told that her behavior reflected poorly on the company's values and reputation. This time, she wasn't just put on probation. There were much more serious consequences. She was told that any further personal drama that affected the company's image would result in immediate termination, and her social media activity would be monitored going forward. My dad called me this afternoon to give me another update on everything that's been happening. He sounded even more exhausted than before, if that's possible. Apparently, Victoria came home from work in complete hysterics again, screaming about how everyone was ganging up on her and how this was all somehow my fault for turning people against her. My dad told her that she had turned people against herself by lying and trying to cover up what she had done instead of taking responsibility, and now she was doing it all over again. He said he was embarrassed by her behavior, and that if she didn't start taking responsibility and getting professional help immediately, he was going to seriously consider a separation. That seemed to finally get through to her, at least temporarily. According to my dad, she's agreed to start individual therapy immediately and has promised to stop posting on social media about the whole situation entirely. She's also apparently deleted all the posts from both rounds of Facebook drama. She also apparently wants to write me another apology letter and is asking if I'd be willing to read it when she's finished with it. Honestly, I'm even less interested now than I was before. It's clear that she's only sorry because she got caught and faced real consequences again, not because she actually understands how wrong her actions were. The fact that she went right back to lying on social media after our coffee meeting shows that she hasn't learned anything at all. The funniest part of all this is that even more people have reached out to me after seeing the second round of Facebook drama. It turns out that Victoria's pattern of vindictive behavior goes back years and years, and people are finally feeling comfortable talking about it openly. One woman told me that Victoria had spread rumors about her having an affair because she was jealous of her promotion at work. Another said Victoria had deliberately given her the wrong time for a family gathering so she would miss it and look bad. It's becoming clear that trying to sabotage my wedding dress was just the latest in a very long pattern of behavior, and definitely not an isolated incident like she claimed in her apology letter. I'm actually grateful that all of this came out. It validates my decision not to forgive her easily and shows that my instincts about her character were correct all along. But then I remember her standing in my room at 2 a.m. with a bottle of bleach, muttering about ruining my perfect day, and I realized that everything that's happened since then has just been confirmation of who she really is as a person. My wedding was perfect. My marriage is strong. And Victoria's attempts to destroy my happiness have only made her own life more miserable. Sometimes the universe really does have a sense of justice, and sometimes the best revenge really is just living well while watching toxic people destroy themselves. I think I'm finally done engaging with this situation entirely. Victoria can work on herself in therapy if she wants to, but I'm not going to be part of that process. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. Thanks again for following this incredibly wild journey with me. It's been therapeutic to share the whole story and get perspectives from people who understand just how crazy this entire situation has been from start to finish.